Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. Today I'll be talking about 3 brands that were on their way down, but they're now coming back up in my opinion. So keep in mind, I'm just like a consumer. I'm just someone that's like looking at this from like a outsider's perspective. I am giving you guys my own opinions, but in my opinion, these brands were on their way, sort of down, but they're now like, climbing up in terms of like quality and in terms of public image and all that stuff. So we're going to be going into some tea right here. So let's just spill some tea. I don't even know. Like, I can't do slang. I can't do a lot of slang. I can't. But anyway, let's just start with the first brand. The first brand that I want to talk about is Morphe. Now, a lot of you are like, okay, Anya, thanks for being so predictable. But seriously, Morphe, for a while, I feel like they were really in terms of creative prowess, they were in the dumps because, let's face it, at first they were private labeling. Okay, allegedly. Let's just say allegedly. They were allegedly private labeling. Then they started coming out with eyeshadow palettes that everyone was obsessed with. They started coming out with the warm browns, okay? After that, they would not stop releasing brown eyeshadow palettes. And let's just face it, when you have a palette and then another palette and then another palette, all of which have warm browns or browns, it gets a little bit old. It really gets old because it's like, how many browns can you have in your collection before you start to go mad? So when they came out with a 39A palette, and I actually have it right here. Where is it? I have it. It's right here. When they came out with the 39A palette, I was like, well, Morphe, congratulations, because you're actually doing something that is a little bit interesting that no one has really done a lot of before. This was a palette that was an example of Morphe actually pushing the boundaries just a little bit, and they were coming out with an eyeshadow palette that A, had great formulas, and B, had a great color story, and C, had a lot of innovation in it that not a lot of larger brands would do. Let's just face it, this is a colorful eyeshadow palette. This has some neutrals in it. This is a good eyeshadow palette. This is 39 colors that actually look interesting, that actually look like colors that people would be interested in getting and wearing, and a lot of these shades are shades that you don't necessarily find in a lot of other palettes. So naturally, this was an example of Morphe kind of coming up the ladder in terms of quality and in terms of product innovation. Another more recent example of them sort of regaining their creative footing, in my opinion, has been this palette right here. This is the 35M palette. I'm wearing it on my eyes today. I was trying it out for a video, but this is a color story itself that is interesting, that is new, that not a lot of brands have done before. You don't really see these colors used in many palettes at all, but Morphe is doing that with this palette right here. So it's so obvious that a lot of thought, a lot of planning, a lot of thinking went into this palette, rather than basically throwing together a whole bunch of browns to create a palette. They created a palette that actually has some idea of innovation, that actually looks interesting, that's not something that everyone has done before. This is a palette that I can actually get interested in because this is a palette that is A, colorful, and B, innovative, So this is an example of Morphe just really stepping it up. They have another eyeshadow palette that I forget the name of, but I will put a picture of it right here. That eyeshadow palette I did not get, and I'm not going to get because I already have some of those shades in other palettes. But my point is, Morphe is going back up creatively with their products. They are launching more interesting things, and I feel like they're getting out of their creative rut that they were in for a while, and I am very happy about that. I do want to mention lightly about the vault situation. I don't know what that was. Okay, I have no idea what that was, but I do want to say that if you take away all the drama of the vault, that was a good concept in itself. The colors actually looked like slightly more unique colors, at least compared to what Morphe was releasing earlier. The Vault collection actually had some nice colors in it. However, with all the controversy, obviously I'm not going to be getting the Vault collection ever because I'm kind of sick of seeing it online, and the other thing is I'm just like kind of fed up with all the controversy, so I'm not getting the Vault collection, but that does not mean I think that Morphe is going down. In fact, I think they're going back up because they are coming out with really good products. I also want to touch on the new 15S Social Butterfly Artistry Palette, as well as the new 15T Your True Selfie Artistry Palette. I do think that these are also good examples of Morphe pushing themselves when it comes to their creativity, and I do think that these are actually color stories that I do find interesting and can get behind, as opposed to the whole array of poo browns that they were releasing last year. The next brand that I think is getting out of their like little, I don't know, hole, and they're climbing out of the hole and they're shooting for the stars is Lime Crime, and they were in my controversial brands video, I think. Morphe and Lime Crime were in my controversial brands video that I filmed like a while back, and I'll put it in the cards if you guys are interested in watching that video. But Lime Crime was in that video, and I mentioned that the owner, like the original owner, was really controversial, and then all that stuff happened with the credit cards, how the credit card information of customers was leaked, and Lime Crime didn't say anything, did a terrible job of it. So naturally people were pissed, and then that kind of like brought public opinion of Lime Crime to all-time low. But now they're rebranding. They have come under new ownership, and the original management, the original founder, is not in charge anymore. So they are getting out of that little pit that they dug themselves into, and they're going towards the light. I do think that we'll be seeing a lot more of Lime Crime in the future because, of course, I feel like their public persona is getting a lot better, and they are going back up again. And the last brand I want to talk about is Colorpop. Now, I love Colorpop probably more than any other brand that I've talked about in this entire video. But Colorpop, I think, for a while, for like about a year, they were like in a creative rut. I want to talk about their eyeshadow palettes specifically. They were coming out with eyeshadow palettes that were boring. They were boring. They basically took the name Colorpop and they did like the exact antithesis of what Colorpop suggests, like what the name suggests. And they were releasing the most basic neutral palettes, the most basic products. Now I definitely think that's changing. We saw that come up with the Solemnly palette collection. That was a collection of two palettes, a cool tone and a warm tone, that did very well. People were very interested in those palettes. I feel like those palettes were the first palettes that they had released in a very long time that didn't consist purely of neutrals. They had the My Little Pony palette, but that palette was like limited edition, okay, and it was a collaboration, and it wasn't something that came from Colorpop directly, or at least that's not what it was marketed as, because pretty much every single palette that they were releasing was a brown neutral palette, and they were releasing a lot of palettes. They were releasing a lot of products, and people were not really getting excited about those products because essentially they were releasing the same things over and over again. When they released the Solemnly palette, I personally saw a little bit of a shift. People were a little bit more interested in the Solemnly palettes because, number one, the packaging was updated, and number two, the whole like color scheme was like a little bit better than it had been previously, and people in general were a lot more motivated to buy that product, to talk about that product, than they had been with previous launches. They recently released a pink palette, like an entire palette consisting of purely pink shadows, which I am really excited about. I do want to put an emphasis on the fact that, of course, everyone has their own opinions. Yes, Colorpop has been relatively popular for a very long time, and they continue to be that way.
but it's just that, in my opinion, a lot of the palettes that they've released previously, they're very basic. They seem to have pops of color. And I do think that with palettes such as the Ooh La La palette and the Good Sport palette that they released recently, Colorpop has turned around a little bit and gone to creating palettes that I expect from the brand. Palettes that are creative, that are bright, that are colorful, that have color stories that are a little bit more unique and not exactly what everyone else is doing.
They're interested in innovation, they're interested in developing themselves, and they're finally getting some sort of a footing when it comes to their brand, because rather than releasing a lot of mediocre looking products, it doesn't matter if the products are good. If they're mediocre looking, no one's really going to be interested in them. But rather than releasing the mediocre looking products, they are actually putting a lot more thought into their products, in my opinion, and they are releasing more interesting products that people can actually get behind. It is getting darker right now, and I do not want to be filming in pitch black darkness. So thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this little brand review, I guess, this little discussion about different brands that are getting a lot better when it comes to their products or their public persona. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave me a comment down below. Give me your opinions, give me your thoughts, give me your feedback. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.